Sir. I'm scared. Mom won't wake up. The words didn't belong in my world. Not at this hour. Not at my door. I stood there, hand still on the glass of bourbon I hadn't touched in 10 minutes, watching the security feed replay the same image, small figure, soaked to the bone, standing barefoot on cold marble like she had nowhere else to go. My penthouse sat 30 floors above Manhattan, insulated from everything that sounded like fear. Or at least, it used to be. I didn't rush. I never rushed. Control was the difference between power and chaos. I set the glass down. Slow. Measured. Then I walked to the door. When I opened it, the city noise disappeared. She looked smaller in person. Maybe 6. Maybe 7. Hair plastered to her face, thin jacket clinging to her shoulders like it wasn't doing its job. Her eyes found mine immediately, wide, glassy, but steady in a way that didn't match her age. Please, she whispered, like the word itself might break. Mom won't wake up. I didn't ask who she was. Didn't ask how she got past security. None of that mattered in the space between her voice and my silence. I studied her instead. The way her hands trembled but didn't reach for me. The way she stood her ground even while shaking. Not weak. Just out of time. I took a slow breath. The kind that steadied everything beneath the surface. Take me to her. She nodded too fast, like she was afraid I'd change my mind if she wasted even a second. I grabbed my coat on the way out, ignoring the voice in my head that reminded me I didn't do things like this anymore. Not for strangers. Not for anyone. The elevator ride down was quiet. She stood beside me, dripping onto polished steel, eyes fixed on the floor numbers like she was counting seconds instead of floors. I watched her reflection instead of the city lights behind us. There was something off. Not just fear. Something deeper. Familiar. The kind of instinct that had kept me alive longer than it should have. When the doors opened, the night air hit hard, cold, sharp, carrying the scent of rain and something else I couldn't place yet. She didn't hesitate. Just grabbed my hand and pulled. That was new. No one pulled me anywhere. But I let her. We moved fast through empty streets, her steps uneven but determined, my pace controlled, scanning everything without looking like I was. Cameras. Shadows. Cars that lingered too long. I didn't need to see the threat to know it existed. You learned that early. By the time we reached the building, I already knew this wasn't random. Old brick. Flickering hallway light. The kind of place people forgot existed until something went wrong. She pushed the door open and ran ahead, calling softly, Mom. I followed slower. Listening. The apartment door was already open. That was the first problem. I stepped inside, senses sharpening instantly. The air felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. And then I saw her. Emily Carter. Lying on the floor, unmoving, like the world had simply paused around her. My gaze swept the room in 1 second. No struggle. No obvious damage. But something didn't sit right. Nothing about this felt like an accident. Stay back, I said quietly, not looking at the girl. My voice changed without effort. Lower. Colder. The version of me I didn't show the world anymore. I crouched beside the woman, checking for signs, for anything that explained the silence. Her pulse was there. Faint. Too faint. I exhaled slowly, already reaching for my phone. Not 911. Never 911. They found you first, I murmured under my breath, more to myself than anyone else. Then I glanced at the girl. She was watching me like I was the only answer she had left. And for some reason I couldn't explain yet. I didn't look away. I did not wait for permission. I never did when time mattered. My phone was already dialing before I finished assessing her condition, stepping away just enough to keep both of them in my line of sight. I need Dr. Hayes, I said the second the call connected, voice flat, controlled, leaving no room for delay. Private location. Female, mid-20s, unconscious, unstable vitals. You have 15 minutes. I ended the call before he could ask questions. He would come. They always did. I slipped the phone back into my coat and looked around again, slower this time, letting the details settle. A cracked picture frame on the counter. A child's drawing taped to the wall. Shoes by the door, neatly placed, like someone who still believed in routine. Nothing about this place suggested carelessness, which meant whatever happened here was not meant to be obvious. Is she going to wake up? The girl asked behind me, her voice smaller now, like hope was already starting to thin. I glanced over my shoulder. She had not moved, still standing exactly where I told her to stay. Good. She listened. She is breathing, I said. Not a lie. Not a promise either. The girl nodded, but her fingers twisted the hem of her sleeve, betraying everything she was trying not to show. I stood, crossing the room in 2 steps to the window. Street below was quiet. Too quiet. A car passed. Another parked across the street with its lights off. I watched it for a second longer than necessary, memorizing. Then I pulled the curtain halfway, enough to break the line of sight without making it obvious. What is your name? I asked, still facing the glass. Lily. A pause. Lily Carter. Carter. The name settled heavier this time. Not coincidence. Not tonight. I turned back to the woman on the floor, studying her face again, searching memory for something that refused to fully surface. There was a connection. I could feel it, like a word on the tip of my tongue that would not come out. Did anyone come here tonight, Lily? I asked. She shook her head quickly. No, just me and Mom. She was fine. Then she just stopped talking. Her voice cracked on the last word, and she pressed her lips together like she regretted letting it happen. I nodded once, filing it away. Sudden. Silent. No sign of struggle. That narrowed things. Behind me, a faint noise echoed from the hallway outside. Not loud. Not obvious. But enough. My body reacted before my mind finished processing it. I moved toward the door, slow, deliberate, each step measured, listening for a repeat. There it was again. A shift. A presence. Someone who did not belong here. I reached for the handle but did not open it. Not yet. Timing mattered. Everything did. I glanced back at Lily. She was watching me again, like she understood something was changing even if she did not know what. Stay with her, I said quietly. Do not open that door for anyone. Her eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. Trust. Immediate. Dangerous. I turned back to the door, my reflection staring at me in the scratched metal surface. For a moment, just a moment, I saw the man I used to be. The one who stepped into situations like this without hesitation. Without second thoughts. I took a slow breath. Then I opened the door. I expected resistance. A voice. A question. Something. Instead, the hallway was empty. Too empty. The kind of empty that felt staged, like a room after everyone had already left, but forgot to tell you why. The overhead light flickered once, then steadied, casting a dull yellow glow over peeling paint and worn carpet that had seen too many years and too many secrets. I stepped out slowly, closing the door behind me just enough to leave it slightly ajar. Never seal yourself in. Never lose your exit. My eyes moved without hurry, scanning corners, shadows, the far stairwell. Nothing moved. But something had been here. I could feel it the same way you feel a storm before it breaks. A door down the hall clicked softly. Not slammed. Not rushed. Controlled. I turned my head just enough to catch it. Apartment 3B. The number hung crooked, like it had been knocked once and never fixed. I stood still, listening. Footsteps faded behind that door. Not running. Not hiding. Just leaving. Interesting. I walked toward it, each step quiet against the carpet, my hand relaxed at my side, my breathing even. No need to escalate. Not yet. When I reached the door, I did not knock. I did not announce myself. I simply stood there for a second, letting the silence stretch, then turned the handle. Locked. Of course. I leaned in slightly, listening through the wood. Nothing now. Whoever had been inside knew exactly when to move and when to disappear. Professional. That confirmed it. This was not random. I stepped back, eyes narrowing slightly as I glanced down the hallway again. The building had cameras. Cheap ones, most likely outdated, but still something. I would deal with that later. For now, priorities stayed the same. I returned to the apartment, pushing the door open with my fingertips, already shifting my focus back to the two people inside. Lily looked up immediately, relief flashing across her face the moment she saw me. She had not moved. Good. She was learning fast. Emily was exactly where I left her, still, quiet, caught somewhere between here and not. I crouched beside her again, checking. Her pulse once more, slower this time, more deliberate. Still there. Still weak. Time was narrowing. Someone was here, I said, more to myself than to Lily, but she heard it anyway. Her small body stiffened. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I did not answer directly. Children did not need details. They needed certainty. It means we do not stay here, I said instead, already reaching for my phone again. Another call. Short. Precise. Change of plan. Bring the car to the back entrance. No lights. I ended it and slipped the phone away. Lily stepped closer now, hesitation fighting with instinct. Are we leaving? She asked. I looked at her for a second. Really looked. Rain still clung to her hair. Her hands were still shaking. But her eyes, steady again. Watching me like I was something she had already decided to trust. Dangerous. For both of us. Yes, I said finally. We are. I slid one arm under Emily carefully, lifting her with controlled ease, adjusting her weight so her head rested securely against my shoulder. She was lighter than I expected. Another detail that did not sit right. Lily moved to my side immediately, close but not in the way, matching my pace without being told. I walked toward the door, pausing just long enough to glance back at the room one last time. The drawing on the wall. The quiet life that had existed here an hour ago. Gone now. Just like that. Stay close, I said as I stepped into the hallway again. This time, the air felt different. Not empty anymore. Waiting. I did not take the stairs fast. Speed gets you noticed. Control keeps you alive. Each step down was measured, steady, my shoulder adjusting to Emily's weight while my eyes mapped every corner ahead before I reached it. Lily stayed close, exactly where I told her, her small footsteps echoing just enough to remind me she was still there. The hallway light above us flickered again as we reached the second-floor landing, and I caught it this time, the faint shift of air from below. A door opening somewhere out of sight. Someone timing us. Not chasing. Not yet. Watching. I kept moving. No hesitation. No change in pace. You do not confirm suspicion. You let them think they are invisible. Are we almost there? Lily whispered, her voice tight, breath uneven from trying to keep up. Almost, I said, not looking back. Reassurance, simple, direct. The back exit door came into view at the end of the narrow corridor, the red exit sign above it buzzing faintly like it had not been replaced in years. Good. Low traffic. Less attention. I pushed the door open with my shoulder, stepping out into the alley behind the building. The cold air hit sharper than before, carrying the damp scent of rain and concrete. My car was already there. Engine running. Lights off. Exactly as instructed. The driver stepped out the moment he saw me, opening the rear door without a word, his expression neutral but alert. He noticed everything. That is why he was still working for me. We were followed, I said quietly as I approached, not breaking stride. Not close. Not careless either. He gave a slight nod. No questions. Just understanding. Lily climbed into the back seat first, turning immediately to make space, her eyes never leaving Emily as I lowered her carefully onto the leather seat. Her head rested against the cushion, her breathing still shallow but steady enough to hold onto. I slid in beside them, closing the door myself. Go, I said. The car moved instantly, smooth, controlled, pulling away from the alley without drawing attention. I watched through the tinted window as the building disappeared behind us, shrinking into just another shadow in a city full of them. But I did not relax. Not yet. Lily shifted closer, her small hand gripping the edge of Emily's sleeve like letting go would change something. She is cold, she said softly. I reached forward, pulling a blanket from the compartment and placing it over Emily without a word. Then I adjusted it slightly so it covered Lily's legs too. She noticed. Of course she did. Children always do. Thank you, she whispered. I did not respond. Not because I did not hear her. Because I did not know what to do with that kind of gratitude. The city lights blurred past outside, reflections sliding across the glass like something trying to keep up. My phone vibrated once in my pocket. I pulled it out. A message from Dr. Hayes. 5 minutes out. Good. I looked back at Emily again, studying her face in the dim light, searching for that missing piece. That refused to settle. Carter. The name was not the problem. It was the memory attached to it that would not fully surface. Something from years ago. Something unfinished. Lily leaned slightly against my arm without realizing it, exhaustion finally catching up to her fear. I did not move away. I should have. I did not. Instead, I kept my gaze forward, voice low when I spoke. You are safe now. The words felt unfamiliar. But for the first time that night, I meant them. The car did not stop at a hospital. It never would. We turned twice off the main road, then once more into a private drive that most people would miss if they were not looking for it. The gate opened before we reached it, silent, precise, recognizing the vehicle without needing confirmation. Inside, the building stood clean and modern, glass and steel reflecting the faint glow of city lights, isolated enough to be forgotten, protected enough to matter. The car slowed to a stop under the covered entrance, and the doors were already opening before the engine fully died. Dr. Hayes stepped forward, sleeves rolled, expression sharp and focused in a way that told me he had not slept either. Good. He worked better that way. You are late, he said, but there was no irritation in it, only urgency. She is alive, I replied, stepping out and lifting Emily again without waiting for assistance. Keep her that way. His eyes scanned her once, quick and efficient, already calculating. Inside. Now. The doors slid open, and we moved in one motion, the environment shifting instantly from cold night air to sterile quiet. Bright lights. Clean floors. No chaos. No waiting rooms. Just controlled precision. The kind you paid for when failure was not an option. Lily followed close, her small steps echoing faster now, trying to keep pace without falling behind. Can I stay with her? She asked, her voice breaking through the silence. Dr. Hayes glanced at me, not her. He knew who made that decision. I did not slow down. She stays, I said. That was enough. We entered a private room already prepared, equipment ready, everything exactly where it needed to be. I laid Emily down carefully, stepping back only when Hayes and his team moved in, their motions fluid, practiced, no wasted time. I watched. Always watched. Monitors came to life. With soft beeps, numbers appearing, shifting, telling a story most people would not understand. I did. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to know this was not simple. Lily stood near the edge of the bed, her hands clenched together, eyes locked on her mother like looking away might change something. I stepped closer to her without thinking, positioning myself just slightly between her and the rest of the room. Not blocking. Just there. She leaned into that space again. Not asking. Just trusting it would hold. Dangerous habit. I let it happen anyway. What happened to her? Hayes asked, his tone low now, focused, but careful. He knew better than to assume. She collapsed, I said. No signs of struggle. But someone was in the apartment before we arrived. That got his attention. A slight pause. A glance at me that said he understood the weight of that detail. Poison, he asked quietly. I did not answer immediately. My eyes moved back to Emily's face, pale under the lights, too still for someone her age. Maybe, I said finally. Or something meant to look like nothing. Hayes nodded once, already adjusting his approach, his team following his lead without question. Good. That was why he was here. Minutes passed. Slow. Measured. The kind that stretched longer when you were waiting for something you could not control. Lily shifted beside me, her voice barely audible when she spoke. You said she would be okay. I looked down at her. Really looked this time. There was no fear left in her eyes. Just expectation. Like she had decided my words meant something permanent. I held that gaze for a second longer than necessary. Then I spoke. I said she is not alone. Not the same thing. But it was the truth. And, sometimes, That was all you could promise. Time changed inside that room. Not faster. Not slower. Just different. Measured in quiet beeps and controlled movements instead of minutes. I stood where I had been for what felt like too long, watching numbers stabilize by fractions, watching Dr. Hayes adjust something, then wait, then adjust again. No panic. No wasted motion. That was the only reason I had brought her here. Lily had stopped asking questions. That worried me more than anything she could have said. She stood close to the bed, one hand resting lightly against the blanket. Like she needed the contact to believe her mother was still there. Every few seconds, her eyes would flick up to the monitor, even though she did not understand what it meant. She was learning the rhythm anyway. Children adapt fast when they have to. I stepped away from her for the first time, just far enough to pull my phone from my pocket again. Another call. This one different. I want everything on Emily Carter, I said quietly. Past 5 years. Financial records. Medical history. Anyone she has been in contact with in the last 72 hours. And I want surveillance from that building before we arrived. A pause on the other end. And if there is nothing, the voice asked. I looked through the glass wall at the room, at Lily, at the woman on the bed who should have been just another name by now. Then look harder, I said, and ended the call. I did not like unknowns. Unknowns meant mistakes. Mistakes got people hurt. I slid the phone away and turned back just as Hayes straightened, pulling off his gloves with a slow exhale. That was the first real shift in the room. Subtle. But there. I stepped closer immediately. Talk to me, I said. He looked at me for a second, then at Lily, then back at me again, choosing his words carefully. She is stabilizing, he said finally. Her body is responding. That is the good part. I did not move. And the rest. He hesitated. Just a fraction. Enough. This was not natural, he said. Her system shows signs of an external agent. Not something common. Not something accidental. I felt it settle into place then. Not surprise. Confirmation. Can you reverse it? I asked. Hayes nodded once. I already started. But I need time. And I need her to stay here. No transfers. No exposure. I gave a short nod. She does not leave. That part was not a request. Lily turned toward us then, her voice cutting through the controlled quiet. Is she going to wake up? She asked. Hayes looked at me again. I answered before he could. Yes, I said. No hesitation. No room for doubt. Lily studied my face for a second, searching for something. Then she nodded, slow, like she had decided that was enough. She moved closer to the bed again, her small fingers finding her mother's hand under the blanket. I watched that moment longer than I should have. Something about it did not fit into the life I had built. Too simple. Too real. I turned away first. Outside the room, the corridor was silent, empty, controlled like everything else here. But I knew better now. This was not over. It had not even started yet. I leaned slightly against the glass, eyes tracking Lily's reflection beside mine, then shifting back to Emily. Carter. The name echoed again, louder this time. Closer to memory. Closer to something I had buried on purpose. I exhaled slowly, the realization settling in pieces instead of all at once. This was not random. She had not ended up at my door by accident. And if someone had tried to make her disappear quietly, then they already knew exactly who she was. Which meant one thing. They would come back. And this time, they would not be subtle. The room had settled into a fragile kind of quiet, the kind that only existed when something dangerous had been delayed but not removed. I stayed by the glass longer than necessary, watching reflections instead of faces, letting my mind move through the pieces that were finally starting to connect. Carter. Not just a name. A file. A memory buried under years of decisions I did not revisit. Until now. My phone vibrated again, sharp and brief. I answered without looking at the screen. Talk. We found her, the voice said. Efficient. Controlled. Emily Carter. Former research assistant. Contract work tied to a private pharmaceutical group 3 years ago. Project was shut down. Records sealed. I did not respond. I already knew where this was going. It gets interesting, the voice continued. Two other names connected to that project. Both listed as missing within 6 months of shutdown. No official reports. No investigations. I looked through the glass again. At her. At the steady rise and fall of her chest. And Lily? I asked. A pause. No records tying her to the project. Birth certificate is clean. Father not listed. Of course. Nothing about this was simple. Send me everything, I said, then ended the call. I did not move right away. I let the silence stretch, let the weight of it settle where it needed to. Then I pushed off the glass and stepped back into the room. Lily had not left her position. She had pulled a chair closer now, sitting beside the bed, her small hand still wrapped around her mother's. Her head had started to dip, exhaustion pulling at her in quiet waves she was trying to fight. She looked up when I entered, like she had been waiting for confirmation that I was still there. I gave a slight nod. That was enough. She relaxed just a fraction. Dr. Hayes was reviewing something on the monitor, his focus absolute, but I saw the moment he registered my return. She is responding better than expected, he said without looking away. Whatever was in her system, it was not meant to act fast. It was meant to go unnoticed. That matched everything else. Clean. Quiet. Delayed. Someone wanted time, I said. Hayes glanced at me briefly. Time for what? I did not answer that. Not yet. Instead, I stepped closer to the bed, my gaze settling on Emily's face again. This close, the memory finally pushed through. Not fully, but enough. A hallway. A conversation. A file I had chosen not to pursue because it did not serve me at the time. That was the mistake. I looked at Lily then. Really looked. The same eyes. Not identical, but close enough. Patterns repeat. They always do. You knew something, I said quietly, more to the woman in the bed than anyone else in the room. Lily shifted slightly, her voice soft but certain. My mom said we were moving soon. I glanced down at her. When? Tomorrow, she said. Just one word. But it changed everything. I exhaled slowly, the timeline locking into place with a precision I did not like. They were not late. We were early. That was the only reason she was still alive. Hayes straightened slightly, picking up on the shift in the room even if he did not know why. You are expecting trouble, he said. Not a question. I met his gaze directly. I am certain of it. He nodded once. No panic. Just understanding. Then we lock this place down. Already done, I said. Because I had not stopped thinking 3 steps ahead since the moment she said she was scared. Lily's fingers tightened slightly around her mother's hand, like she could feel something changing even if she could not name it. I looked at her for a second. Then back at Emily. They thought they had more time, I said quietly. Now they know they do not. And somewhere out there, someone was already adjusting their plan. The shift happened quietly. Not in the room. Not in the monitors. In her. I saw it before anyone else did. A slight change in her breathing. Not stronger. Not weaker. Just different. Like something inside her had decided to come back. I stepped closer without thinking, my attention narrowing to the smallest details. Lily noticed too. Of course she did. Her grip tightened instantly. Mom, she whispered, leaning forward just enough to make it real. Dr. Hayes turned at the same time, his focus snapping to the monitor, then back to Emily's face. Easy, he said, calm but alert. Do not rush her. I did not move. I did not speak. I just watched. Because moments like this, they do not give warnings twice. Emily's fingers shifted first. Barely. A small movement under the blanket that most people would miss. But Lily did not miss it. She moved, she said, her voice breaking into something brighter, something fragile. Hope. Dangerous thing. I had seen what hope did when it broke. Emily's eyes did not open right away. They fluttered once, then stilled again, like the effort itself cost more than she could give. Hayes stepped closer, adjusting something, watching her response carefully. Emily, he said, steady and clear. Can you hear me? Silence. Then, another breath. Slightly deeper this time. I felt it settle in the room, that shift from uncertainty to something else. Not safety. Not yet. But direction. Lily leaned closer, her voice softer now, almost afraid to push too hard. Mom, it is me. That did it. Emily's eyes opened. Not wide. Not clear. But open enough to show awareness behind them. Confusion came first. Then fear. Not of the room. Not of the machines. Of me. Her gaze found mine almost immediately, locking in with a recognition that hit faster than memory. She knew. Even like this, she knew exactly what I was. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Too weak. Too early. I stepped closer anyway, just enough for her to focus without strain. You're safe, I said. The words felt different this time. Heavier. More like a promise than a statement. Her eyes searched my face, trying to place something. Trying to connect a moment that refused to fully form. Then she whispered it. Barely audible. That was all she got. But it was enough. I felt the past finally break through in fragments. Not clear. Not complete. But undeniable. She had seen me before. Not here. Not like this. Somewhere else. Somewhere I had chosen to forget. Hayes stepped in again, his tone firm now. That is enough. She needs rest. I did not argue. Not because I agreed. Because I knew pushing now would cost more later. I stepped back half a step. Not leaving. Just adjusting. Lily was crying now. Quiet tears. The kind she tried to hide by pressing her face into the blanket. Emily's fingers moved again, weak but deliberate, finding Lily's hand without looking. That connection, it held. Stronger than anything else in that room. I watched it longer than I should have. Then I turned slightly, my focus shifting to the door. Not because I heard something. Because I expected to. My phone vibrated again. I did not need to check it to know what it meant. They had found us. Or they were close. I looked back at Emily one last time, her eyes already drifting closed again, her strength fading as quickly as it came. But this time, she had seen me. And that changed everything. I lowered my voice, just enough for her to hear if she was still listening. You were right to run. A pause. Then quieter. But you ran to the wrong place. Because now, there was no leaving. The vibration in my hand was not urgent. That was the problem. Urgency is loud. It forces mistakes. This was controlled. Planned. I stepped out of the room before answering, the door closing behind me with a soft click that sealed Lily and Emily inside, a temporary illusion of safety. The hallway lights hummed quietly overhead, too steady, too calm for what I already knew was coming. I answered without speaking. They are here, the voice said on the other end. No panic. Just fact. Not inside. Perimeter. Watching. I walked toward the far end of the corridor, each step measured, my mind already moving ahead of the moment. How many? I asked. Enough to confirm. Not enough to act. Yet? Of course. They were careful. Just like before. Just like the apartment. Testing boundaries. Waiting for weakness. They would not find it here. Lock it down, I said. No one in. No one out without my word. A pause. Already done. I ended the call and slipped the phone back into my coat, my reflection catching briefly in the glass panel beside me. For a second, I saw it clearly. Not the man who answered a door for a scared child. The man who made sure no one else ever had to knock again. I turned back toward the room, pushing the door open just enough to step inside without disturbing the quiet that had settled again. Lily had not moved. Still beside the bed, her head now resting against her mother's arm, her eyes half closed, but refusing to fully give in to sleep. Emily was still, her breathing more stable now, her face less strained under the lights. But her hand, still holding Lily's. That connection had not broken. It would not. I stepped further in, my presence filling the space without effort. Lily looked up immediately, like she had been listening for the door even in her exhaustion. Is everything okay? She asked, her voice soft but steady. I did not answer right away. Not because I did not have one. Because the truth was not something she needed yet. Instead, I moved closer, stopping at the edge of the bed, my gaze shifting briefly to Emily before returning to Lily. Everything is handled, I said. Not a lie. Just not the whole truth. Lily studied me for a second, longer than most adults ever did, like she was learning how to read something she did not fully understand yet. Then she nodded slowly, accepting it. Trust again. Given without condition. I looked at Emily then, at the faint tension still lingering beneath her stillness, at the way her breathing caught slightly when the silence stretched too long. She was not resting. Not fully. She was listening. Even now. Even like this. I leaned slightly closer, my voice low enough that it would not carry beyond the space between us. They are already looking for you, I said. No reaction from her face. But her fingers tightened slightly around Lily's. Enough. You do not get to disappear quietly anymore, I continued. Not from them. Not from me. A pause. Just long enough to let it settle. Then I straightened, my gaze moving once more to the door, to the world beyond it that was no longer distant. It was here now. Close. Watching. Waiting. I looked back at Lily, then at Emily, and for the first time that night, the line was clear. Not blurred. Not uncertain. Defined. You stay here, I said quietly, but there was no softness in it. No room for argument. With me. Because whatever had started before they reached my door did not end with saving her life. It had just begun.